Trump has cratered. I mean, cratered. It's like not even present tense anymore. It's done. Just 23% approve of his overall performance. 21% of independents support this war on Iran. 21. You've got 79% of independents who are against. Folks, you cannot win elections like that. Democrat or Republican, you got 80% of the independents against you. You're effed. You need to adjust something ASAP. And listen to this. How many independents approve of Trump's job performance when it comes to the cost of living? 12. They were already suffering and they were blaming him. And then we launched a war of choice that was not necessary. And their gas prices went up. And energy prices are going up. So this pain is likely only to get worse. And this war needs to come to an end right away. At least now President Trump seems to want it. Unfortunately, as the old saw goes, it's very easy to start a war and very difficult to end one. The Iranians get a say, and they're not rolling over.
Wow. That's powerful. Not because of what she said. What she said is obvious and true, but because of who said it. Megyn Kelly on Trump. Long time Trump supporter. And she did it obviously for her ratings because she knew if she didn't support Trump, she would get canned. And well, she did get canned for a while. She's trying to make a comeback. She made a comeback on the MAGA trail, and that has not gone as smoothly as I'm sure she had hoped. And now she's kind of turning on the guy. You ever notice the women are turning on him first? Marjorie Taylor Greene and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owen, the women are turning on him first. He treats women differently than he treats men. He treats them worse. And it's like the women are waking up to it and seeing it before the men are, or, the men don't care. I don't know. But the problem is normally politicians and the Republicans who support the president through thick and thin, normally you would have expected them to start letting go now because he's so far down in the polls. But they can't because he still controls the Republican Party. And, if they get primaried, they're pretty much out, as Bill Cassidy has shown. But I will tell you, getting kicked out of this party would be a badge of honor. Nobody should think of that as a disgrace because it means you actually stood up for something. You stood up for some truth. So getting kicked out is a good thing, not a bad thing. When you're in a bad party, not getting kicked out is a bad thing because the bad people accept you and embrace you. So anyway, she is saying he's done because you can't go down this far in the polls and basically not be done. You can't. This is very, very. It's hugely difficult to recover from these kind of poll numbers. I don't know if any president ever has, but look at these poll numbers. The Real Clear Politics average, the poll of polls, is -17. Trump is 17 points underwater. This is a couple of weeks ago. This was at -17.1. So this is right at the highest that it's ever been. But look at what I'm seeing. This is very different. The average approval is now under 40%. It's in the 30s, 39.9. And look down this column. This is the number of people who approve, the percentage of people, and all the ones in yellow are under 40%. There's 7 of these. They're all in the 30s. All right. Total, there's 17 here. So 7 is about 40%. 40% of the polls are in the 30s. They have him at a 30-something approval rating. The numbers in blue that I highlighted in blue are between 40 and 42%. Okay. That takes up pretty much the rest of the column except for 3 entries. Rasmussen, of course, is at 43, almost the highest. Morning Consult is at 44%, and we have Insider Advantage at 44. Insider Advantage, Morning Consult, and Rasmussen are always very pro-Trump. They always have the highest numbers for him. They were the last to go into negative territory back, months ago when he still had a little positive territory going. They always had him over 50% approval. And to see these numbers, -13 from Rasmussen and -9 from Morning Consult, see, not a big shock there. They would do anything in their power to get him over 50%. And insider advantage, look at how low this is, -5. Look at the rest of these, -26. That was the latest poll just in, the most recent one from May 13th through the 15th. -22, -13, -16, -26, -50. Anyway, we're getting more and more double-digit numbers, and we're getting more numbers in the 20s now rather than in the 10s, where they had been for a long time. Harry Enton says that Trump is facing the worst polls since Carter. Can you imagine? This guy, Trump, goes around so proudly, I'm the best president in the history of the universe, blah, blah, blah. And he's doing worse in the polls than Carter. And he's doing way worse than Biden. It's pretty crazy. I mean, obviously he'll just deny it. He'll say it's fake news, but we all know it's real because you know how you know it's real? When he says something's fake, that's how you know it's real. That's like the stamp of authentication that something is true and real when he calls it fake.
Majority of Americans are against this war, and regardless of what exactly he did mean, the context matters, but also here's what also matters. Democrats love that comment. They're going to cut it and put it in so many ads before the midterm elections. My goodness gracious, it's a dopey comment from that perspective. And more than that, we're talking about 79% of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump on gas prices. That is the highest percentage that any president has had disapproving them on gas prices and any question that I could possibly find. We're talking about when we're talking about.
But just one comment here. When he says Democrats are going to use that in the polls, you know, this comment where he said he doesn't care about your high prices and in relation to gas. Since he's not running, it's Congress people who are running in November, they need to put him up saying that and then show your local Republican congressman supporting him and saying that, and tying the two together. I think a lot of Republican voters are very disgruntled with Trump, but maybe less so with their own congressman. So they got to tie them together.
Inflation, right? We're talking about the worst polls ever for any president belong to Donald John Trump. That's worse. He's doing worse than Carter. He's doing worse than Joe Biden did in his last term. When you put it all together, you just go, man alive, man, what are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing, right? All right, good old Harry Enton summing that one up. But yeah, worse than Carter and worse than Biden. He thought he was so much better than both of those guys. Now he can't even do as well in the polls as they did. Amazing. Now, here's some good news. The generic congressional vote, where they ask you, who are you leaning towards voting for, a Democrat in the congressional elections this year or a Republican? Okay, it's just generic, has nothing to do with the specific candidates of each district. Now, Harry Enton, a couple of weeks ago, said after the redistricting decision by the Supreme Court not allowing Virginia to redistrict or more Democratic districts, so they're going to have whatever number of Republican districts that they have, and which is going to be more than the people voted for in Virginia. But Harry said at that time, he said Democrats now, in order to win, before the redistricting, he said that in order for Democrats to win a majority in the House, they needed to have at least a 1-point advantage in this generic congressional poll. Okay, because the Republicans were so far underwater. And with the districts the way it looked like they were going to be before the Supreme Court decision, they needed a 1-point advantage to take the House. He said after the Virginia decision, they needed a 3 to 4% advantage. He said that 2 weeks ago. No, sorry, he said it a week ago. The week before that, 2 weeks ago, Democrats were at 5.9% over Republicans in this congressional generic poll. They were at 5.9. A week later, which was last week, they got up to 6.1%. And now this week, look at this, 7.2. So that's what you call skyrocketing. If they're doing a percentage point a week, it obviously won't continue at that rate, but it gets them up there in really strong territory where this whole redistricting thing may not even be a worry at all. And I've always said that people are so disgruntled with Trump, even Republicans on some issues are only supporting him by 70%, like the war. And that's a big, big number of Republicans to turn against him on a big issue. Well, if you turned every district in the country red, I still predicted that Democrats would win the House in the landslide. So I think that will still happen no matter what. Now, let's just look at today's headlines. No, let's don't go through all the history of everything that's happened every month since he's been in office this time. But every day looks like this. Let's check crude oil prices. Let me reload just to get the freshest update. All right. So Brent crude, the benchmark at 110, it's been up as high as 111 today. West Texas Intermediate, 106. It's been as high as 107 today. And this West Texas Intermediate is what Trump keeps saying is going to save America. He says, we don't need Middle Eastern oil, which is true. We can get all our oil from America, which is true. So he says, so we'll get cheap oil. But how does he think it's going to be cheap? Because when there's a shortage worldwide, that pushes up the prices on all oil. This West Texas Intermediate is at 106, which is going to mean very high gasoline prices for us for a long time to come. This is closer to the world price, what they're paying. But you see, they march kind of in tandem here. They're not really far off from each other. Anyway, he needs to understand that oil is like you pump it out of the ground, you pour it into a big giant bucket, and the whole world can take its piece out of that one bucket. And when the bucket runs low, the prices go up for all of it. Okay. Not just, Middle Eastern oil. Middle Eastern oil doesn't go up to 110 and American oil stays at 55. Okay. That doesn't happen. So again, a fundamental misunderstanding on his part about how things work. And the energy prices talking about more bad news and why he's going so low in the polls. Iran energy crisis enters new phase as peak summer season approaches. Okay. Summer driving, summer air conditioning. Nearly 80 countries have now introduced emergency measures to protect their economies as the world approaches a new, more dangerous phase in the energy crisis, driven by the Iran war of choice. War this president chose on his own to do against really bad information that was given to him, saying that Iran was very close to having nukes within 2 weeks. That was incredibly, that was just wrong. That was wrong information. So he started the war based on that. Now, 80 countries, 80 and some of the largest economies in the world are now introducing emergency measures because one man in the whole world decided to throw a bomb into the heart of the Middle East. Really stupid, stupid thing to do. The bad headlines just pile up on him, though, as they should, because the consequences of his bad choices, his horrible management, his incompetency, his ignorance, that's why we're in this war in Iran. He's completely ignorant to what nuclear capabilities they had and how fast they could have gotten them. And he's completely ignorant of that whole part of the world. He doesn't realize the top job of an American president is to keep Persian Gulf open to shipping. That's our top job. That's our interest there, is to keep that Persian Gulf open for shipping. And he just threw a bomb into the middle of it, shut it down. Then Iran said, we're going to blockade the Persian Gulf or the Strait of Hormuz. And he said, well, we're going to blockade your blockade. The whole point, we're supposed to be opening the Persian Gulf, not blockading it. So here we go, another headline, energy crisis enters new phase as peak summer season approaches. Here's an alarming story, oil supplies declining rapidly. This is going to lead to long-term high prices and long-term pain for everybody, not just America, not just the United States, the whole world. Gas prices are up 56% in the USA. They've not been below what they are right now for a couple of weeks now. Maybe 3 weeks, maybe 4. And they're not going lower because, as we see here, the price of crude is going back up over 100. It had been in the 90s for, maybe a week, but it's going back up because there's more uncertainty now. All right. So that's Drudge. couple of headlines from the New York Times, just bad news everywhere you look. Trump's approval sinks amid unpopular war and darkening GOP prospects. Look at this. When asked, do you think Donald Trump's decision to go to war with Iran was the right decision or wrong decision? 30% of the country say it was the right decision. 30%. 64% say it was wrong. And that number's growing every week as people get more and more pinched on these gas prices. And wait till that starts to hit the price of food that has to be transported by trucks that use gas or diesel or fuel, whatever they use. All right, but look at this. This is interesting. Do you think his decision to go to war was the right thing to do? Only 70% of Republicans say yes. 22% say no, and 8% apparently are undecided. That's huge. That's a huge break. That's a very, very big break. And if he can't hold on, for the longest time, he's had like 90, for a long time, he had about 90% support among Republicans. Well, if almost 30% of them are disagreeing with him on this huge issue, that's really going to bring that 90% down. If you can get that to even 80%, we're going to do great in November. All right. Okay, let's see. Wait, there were a couple more things I thought here. Ebola outbreak. We'll see how he handles that. I hope it's not another COVID where he tries to, what he did in COVID is he just wanted to hide the numbers. He didn't want the numbers to be reported. He thought that would make it go away, which obviously it didn't. All right. I guess that's it. Anyway, Trump's in new territory because there's been a crack in the polling floor, which that's the one that puts him in the 30s as far as approval goes. He's gone well below 40% now. Anyway, things are looking up for us because things are looking down for him. I'm Jonathan Burton. I appreciate you watching, and I will be back soon. Take care.